There are very few times in a lifetime where you get to see someone change the game right before your eyes. Very rarely do you have the chance to see someone exceed the expectations that everybody had for him, by a long shot. And very rarely do you see both of these things from a 6'3" unathletic point guard. Now, if you're unfamiliar, Steph Curry is almost unanimously known as the greatest shooter that we've ever seen. The types of shots that he can make off the dribble with elite ball handling multiple feet behind the three-point line at a consistent level is something that we've never seen before. But when people ask when he gained that title, a lot of people would say he surpassed everybody else in terms of shooting in the 2015-2016 NBA season when he became the first unanimous MVP in NBA history. And most people know this, but what a lot of people probably don't know is just how he got there and the insane numbers and facts about that historic season. And so today, we're going to be taking a look back at that season, some of his accomplishments during it, the records he set, and ultimately we're going to be discussing why I believe this was the greatest offensive season by any player in NBA history. But before we begin, if you're new here, I'm Double D. I'm a huge basketball fan, I make NBA videos here on YouTube. So if you're also an NBA fan, or just a basketball fan in general, feel free to hit the sub button and click the bell to be notified when I upload more videos just like this one. Alright, let's get into the video. So in order to fully understand why this season was just so special, we first need to go backwards to the season before. The 2014-15 season was where we would truly see Steph Curry and the Warriors start to break out as a contending team. Before this season, they were a good team, but not one that you thought had a legitimate chance of beating some of the top teams in the West at the time, like the Spurs or the Thunder. Although they did take the Spurs to 6 games in 2013, they would get sent home by the Clippers in 2014 in 7 games in the first round. And this will ultimately lead to the Warriors firing head coach Mark Jackson and hiring Steve Kerr. This would be the key that would maximize the Warriors' offense by giving Steph Curry the freedom to do whatever he wanted and running a more complex motion offense. This made the Warriors incredibly difficult to guard, especially Steph Curry and Klay Thompson due to their shooting ability, and they would both prove themselves as two of the greatest shooters of all time, as in this season we would see Klay Thompson score 37 points in one quarter, and just a few weeks later we would see Steph Curry go for 51 points while making 11 threes, with 26 of those points coming in the third quarter. Ultimately, the Warriors would win 67 games, which was a 16-win increase over their 51 wins the previous season. They would win the championship and Curry would win MVP. Now, this is where things get interesting, because nearly everything about this season was doubted by certain groups of people. There were people that made the argument that James Harden possibly should have won MVP over Curry due to him putting up 27 points, 7 assists, and 2 steals, and leading the Rockets to 56 wins without another star by his side other than maybe Dwight Howard. And so these people felt that it went to the best player on the best team rather than actual most valuable player. But that's not all, because during the Warriors playoff run, they would face a Cavs team with 2 of their 3 stars out with injuries. So they essentially faced LeBron James surrounded by role players. And given that the Cavs were actually up 2-1 in the series at one point, this led people to believe that the Cavs with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love would have beaten them had they not gotten injured. And that's a take that even I would agree with. But I also maintain that the Warriors win in 2016 if Draymond doesn't get suspended and Bogut doesn't go down. They won each other's rings, and I've been saying that for the last few years. But anyway, back to what we were talking about. So what only added to it is the fact that Steph Curry didn't even win Finals MVP in the 2015 Finals. And so this also led people to believe that Matthew Dellavedova actually shut him down the whole series, even though he only did it for 1 game. And actually had to go to the hospital after that game from essentially taking years off of his life by chasing Curry around the court. And so people believe that he shouldn't have won MVP, people believe that the Warriors shouldn't have won the ring, and Curry didn't even win Finals MVP. Everything needed for a fraudulent season argument. And so fast forward to the next season, where the Warriors immediately come into it with something to prove to everybody that had something to say about them the previous year, but especially Steph Curry, who opened the very first game of the season with a 24-point first quarter, hitting 5 threes and totaling 40 points in the game. Just 2 games later, he would drop 53 points, with 28 of those coming in the third quarter, and he hit 8 threes that game. The next game, he would score 30 points in a 50-point win over the Memphis Grizzlies. And the next game after that was at the time a rivalry game against the Clippers, where the Warriors would make a comeback late in the fourth quarter and Curry would hit clutch shot after clutch shot, with Oracle sounding like a playoff game in November.
Curry again for 3. Bang! Curry, long distance. It's good! Steph Curry from way downtown!
Now, fun fact, I actually fell asleep during the third quarter of this game, and this remains the only game in the last few seasons that I fell asleep during. And I am still mad that I fell asleep during it. Over the next 2 months, we would see Steph Curry lead the Warriors to an NBA record 24-0 start to a season, which blows the previous record of 15-0 completely away. During this stretch, Steph Curry averaged 32.5 points, 5.3 rebounds, 6.1 assists, 2.3 steals, and he shot 51.8% overall, and 46.5% from 3 on 11 attempts a game. And oh yeah, he shot 91% on free throws. And during this win streak, he would have 7 40-point games. We fast forward to January 25th, where we are about to witness the long-awaited matchup between the Warriors and the Spurs, who are coming into this game 38-7. And so we're awaiting probably the best matchup of the entire season.
No need to shoot it. It finishes at a nice even number. A 30-point win.
Oh, okay. So, in probably the most anticipated game of the entire season, Steph Curry completely destroys the Spurs by scoring 37 points in 3 quarters, taking some of the most disrespectful shots I've ever seen, and dancing while the game is going on. But over the next week, we would see Steph Curry go into the worst slump that we'd see from him all season by scoring over 15 points in only 1 out of the next 3 games. February 3rd would be a nationally televised game against the Wizards, and the always fun matchup of Steph Curry versus John Wall. And so coming off of that slump, in probably the only time I've ever thought I was about to watch a player score 70 points in a game, Steph Curry starts off the game by hitting 7 threes in the first quarter and scoring 25 points. Again, dancing while the game is going on. He would finish the game with 51 points, shooting 19 for 28 overall and 11 for 16 from 3. From there, Steph Curry begins probably one of the greatest offensive months from any player in NBA history, as during the month of February, he would go on to average 36.7 points, 5.6 rebounds, 7.3 assists, 1.9 steals, and shot 55% overall, 53.6% from 3, while making almost 7 threes a game. And this doesn't even tell the full story. This doesn't take into account the types of shots he was making, how far away some of them were, which we'll go into more detail on that later, and just how easy it actually looked for him. Like, just look at this. Look at how effortless he's making it look. Around this point is where we were having talks of possibly adding a 4-point line or moving the 3-point line back because that's how easy it was getting. This will also be the point where he was playing so great and his shot selections were so insane that NBA 2K would admit to saying his range and efficiency drove the developers to worry that his abilities could not be replicated on screen. Curry goes on to average 28 points over the rest of the season. We then fast forward to April 13th. The 72-9 Warriors have now tied the record for most wins in a single season with the 1996 Chicago Bulls. They are preparing to play the Memphis Grizzlies, who actually gave them a fight just the week before. And so I'm sure this will be a very competitive game.
The greatest regular season in NBA history now belongs to the 2016 Golden State Warriors.
So in the last game of the season, Steph Curry gives us one last show. 46 points, 10 threes, and 73 wins. Also during this game, he became the first player in NBA history to hit 400 threes in a single season. Reminder that nobody else in NBA history had ever gotten to 300. Overall for the season, Steph Curry averaged 30.1 points, 5.4 rebounds, 6.7 assists, 2.1 steals, and he shot 50.4% from the field, 45.4% from 3, and 90.8% on free throws. And he became the first unanimous MVP in NBA history, by having all 131 voters vote him for first place. Now, I can tell you the stats all day, but it's difficult to truly understand how insane this season actually was until you can visualize it. And so, let's talk about it. So the thing to consider here is just how much the season changed the game and changed everyone's perspective on what can be possible on the court. We'll start with the production. Steph Curry averaged 30 points while shooting 50%, which means he's the first guard to do this since Michael Jordan did it in 1992. He led the league in both scoring and steals with 30 points and 2 steals a game. He's the first player to do this since Allen Iverson in 2002. Efficiency was the story this season. Steph Curry shot 50% on field goals, 45% on threes, and 90% on free throws, which makes him the first volume scorer to have a 50-45-90 season, and just the 7th player in league history to have a 50-40-90 season. But the crazy part about this is just the amount of threes that he made. Take a look at Steph Curry's 3-point makes compared to everyone else, and it is worth noting that he shot the highest percentage out of everybody here. Now, if you want to say, some of these guys played in a different era, then that's fine. But you also have to remember that this season is just one of the main reasons that teams now shoot 43s a game today, even just a few years later. And on the topic of 50-40-90 seasons, Steph Curry averaged the most points for a 50-40-90 season. But the next highest guard with such a season was Steve Nash in 2006 when he averaged just 19 points, nearly 11 less than Curry. Now, one thing that sometimes gets lost about the season is the fact that there are a lot of unbelievable things that happened during it. For one, Steph Curry became just the first player in NBA history to score 50 points with only 1 free throw or less. He broke the record for most consecutive games with a 3-pointer made, which was 127 by Kyle Korver. But let's talk more about the shooting. Steph Curry completely changed our perception on what a bad shot actually is. Because in this season, Steph Curry shot 58% from between 30 and 35 feet, 40% between 35 feet and half court, and 29% from beyond half court. This is literally unbelievable. To put it into perspective, Steph Curry for an entire season shot the same percentage on backcourt heaves as Russell Westbrook's total 3-point percentage from that same season. Now, this last one is pretty insane. What Steph Curry actually did this season was so unbelievable that he actually placed 4th in most improved player voting that season. The reigning MVP placed in the most improved player race. That is... that doesn't even make sense. But it still doesn't put it into perspective. The fact that the NBA record for 3-pointers made was 286 by who else? And at the All-Star break, he already had 245 3-pointers made. With nearly 2 months left in the season, he was already almost 40 away. But this chart truly shows just how big of a jump he made in that season. Here are all of Steph Curry's 3-point makes for a single season before 2016. For the most part, he's floating somewhere between 200 and 260. And then there's 2016. This is most likely one of the largest gaps in any stat that you will ever see. What Steph Curry did in this season is absolutely amazing, and it will always be one of my favorites because it was just so incredible to watch. And to think, a guy 3 inches taller than me and 1 inch taller than my brother did that in the NBA. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell to be notified when I upload, comment down below what you want to see next, and as always, I'll see you guys on the next one.